Commissioners, I'm going to call a roll. Commissioner Bassman, are you here?
I'm here.
Commissioner Killeen, are you here?
Here.
Commissioner Vincent, are you here?
I'm here.
Alderman Commissioner Schmidt, are you here?
I'm here.
Commissioners here. I don't see any. Commissioners, has anybody read the minutes from last meeting? Okay. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of approving the minutes, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Commissioners, does anybody recall the agenda from last month, last meeting? And has anyone seen the agenda for this meeting? Okay. Could I have one motion that approves both the agenda from last meeting and the agenda for this meeting?
So moved. Second.
Discussion? Okay, this will be our agenda. However, we may vary from this agenda, but keeping agenda item A for just a minute and beginning with agenda item C. Get the PowerPoint off my face.
All right. This is a new application for 4055 floor plate. And I'm Andrea Gagan with Cultural Resources Office in Florida Children's Street. Okay, this is 4055 floor plate. All these were taken a little while ago. So the retaining wall is this wall here and this rounded wall around the tree. The applicant has a building permit application to retain the concrete block retaining walls in front of the building. The applicant started the lower retaining wall without a permit, and the stop work order was placed, and she came in to apply. The application was denied as the retaining walls did not meet the Shaw Historic District standards, and the owner appealed. We had spoken to representatives of Shaw Neighborhood Improvement Associations who had indicated to the staff that they had contacted the owner and she had agreed to move the walls or lower them to a curbing height. However, it appears was not what the owner in fact wanted to do. And so it was, she reapplied and is now being brought before the board. Since the time that we initially spoke to the applicant, the wall, lower wall and the wall around the tree finished permanent. The rubber site, floor plate. Here's a close-up of walls at the driveway, up along driveway, and somewhat up along the back side. You can't see much of that. It's great on that side. And then the wall, circular wall around the front of the tree. The detail of the horseshoe retaining wall around the tree. As you can see, the walls are of decorative concrete block, which is non-approved material in the historic district. Walls of any material are in front of the building line are not permitted under the Shaw Historic District standards. The walls are highly visible and are, as I said, non-material. The Cultural Resources Office asked that the, actually, I'll say that. You'll find in front of you there are 3 handouts. One is right up from the owner, which describes what happened. The other is a letter from the Shaw Neighborhood Association, which talks about planting beds. I'm assuming they're talking about the whole thing, but it just says planting bed. It did say that they were okay with the appearance of material, but they understood that we might want to lower the height. There's also a letter from the Alderman, Steve Conway, requesting a variance for the proposed yard. The owner, initially when she came in, based her design off of actually kind of a horseshoe-shaped retaining wall that was in the middle of the Flora Place Parkway. We had that also did not have a permit, and our office had a meeting with the Shaw neighborhood people, and they're supposedly supposed to be lowering the height as Cultural Resources Office was not think that was appropriate material for a retaining wall in the median. And the Cultural Resources Office asked that the Conservation Board deny the application as it does not comply with the Shaw Historic District.
Questions? Questions? Okay, is the applicant here?
Yes.
Okay, if you speak really loudly, you can say right where you are.
Okie dokie.
Tell us who you are.
I'm Julia Auck, owner of 4055 Flora Place. I don't typically read from something, but I want to make sure I don't miss anything, so we appreciate the opportunity to address the board. Thank you so much. While it is true that we were neglectful in applying for a permit prior to the beginning of constructing our enclosed flower bed, we were unaware that such a permit would be required, and for that we are truly sorry. While the board has presented a few of the facts in this case, along with the agenda, unfortunately there are missing details which must be shared, as well as incorrect information which must be clarified. First and foremost, I think it's important that you're aware of the reason for such an untraditional remedy. Due to severe erosion over time, which was the result of a sloping yard completely shaded by the extremely large tree and easement, which is pictured in your handout, our yard no longer contained any grass, had eroded away to soil and roots, and exposed even the sewer air vent up 18 inches above the ground line, resulting in an eyesore and certainly devaluation of property value. It was our intent to remedy the situation by replacing lost soil. And again, due to the extreme slope of the yard, a border of some type needed to be placed around the perimeter to hold in the soil. After receiving the stop work order in May, we began the process of, the appeal, as Andrea Gagan said. A phone call came to us from Bob Bettis letting us know that the project wasn't being approved because the Flora Place Community Improvement District, it's important to be clear, it was not the Shaw Neighborhood Improvement District, not CDOT. It was the Shaw, our Flora Place Improvement District, wasn't in favor of it. Apparently 2 members of the Flora Place CAD, the president and the head of the landscape committee, came down to the office on June 6th, informing the office that the Flora Place CAD was not not going to approve, not going to approve the project. However, according to Flora Place bylaws, officers and directors each have 1 vote on business that's contemplated by the organization as part of their duties, and no vote was ever taken on this business. Therefore, it was unlawful for them to represent a larger group of at least 25 voting members. At that point, I was told that I would receive information about a meeting where I could present my case, but I never delivered any kind of follow-up in that. So, kind of cut to the chase. It's kind of long, and I'm sorry that you have it in front of you. We decided we would go ahead and reach out to the wider community at that point, and we did attend the Shaw Neighborhood Improvement Association meeting and received full support And again, that also included Alderman Stephen Conway, who was there and spoke out in favor of the project. And I've included the letter from SNIA as well as the letter from Stephen Conway for your inspection. Excuse me. So knowing that the Shaw Historic Art Fair was coming up, we decided to go ahead and put plants in to what is, there's no yard, it's an entire flower bed. We went ahead and put the plants in for curb appeal and to, make sure that our neighborhood looks beautiful during this very important time. And again, we apologize for continuing with the work, but we hadn't heard from anyone in almost 4 months at that point. We are aware that ordinance 59400 states that yard dividers, walls, enclosures, fences are not permitted in front of the building line, but then goes on to describe should they be constructed with their acceptable building materials. The comment that we want to address is that the comment of the approved, not an approved material. Again, we were modeling the exact building material that's used in all the cross streets all the way down Flora, which had been constructed just prior to us beginning our project. So we really had no way of thinking that this material was going to be an issue, and we realized they've received a variance for that work as well. It's our hope, there's a picture of that enclosed, the note enclosed as well in your packet. It's our hope that Flora Place Association and the Landscaping Committee would have considered the structural integrity and that sort of thing when putting these beautiful enclosed flower beds up, and we were just trying to do something similar since one of them's right in front of my home. My understanding now that they've had some challenges with that as well, and again, we have no way of knowing that, and we apologize. We also realize that an area variance can be requested by a landowner when an odd configuration of the land or physical improvement structures on the land or sometimes the physical improvements on the land require a relaxation of the applicable regulations to avoid denying the landowner the same rights and use of the property enjoyed by owners of neighboring properties. And we feel that due to this immense tree, this was circumstances beyond our control, this is the best situation we can come up with to remedy that. We are therefore requesting a variance for our project. I have with me also a signed petition by every homeowner on the 4,000 block of Flora Place, and again, as well as Steve Conway's letter and the SNIA letter. Thank you.
Give your petition to Adonis. Questions? Commissioners?
Yeah. Could someone on staff clarify something? Is this one of the streets that has the configuration of the terraces?
Yes.
So I think a lot of people don't understand that. Because this is clearly, a violation of just that, and
Right, and that you can reestablish the slope of the terrace would be an alternative.
Could somebody describe it to them? It's not that you're trying to punish them, it's just that, and the reason that in the center parkway they were different, and they're not bound by the terracing rule or whatever.
We didn't approve that either.
Let me clarify.
Lower them.
Okay.
The median planting beds were done without a permit, and at the meeting referred to in early June. But new and certain. No one could have left that meeting thinking that we approved that material or even the idea of the beds, but they were built, and so we. The conclusion was that they lowered those to the height of a curb. It was sort of a compromise solution for something already built. But they didn't consult with us at all on that project. And I think we don't know exactly the historic configuration of that median area, but it seems to me that it was strongly likely that something new was introduced with that project. But
But the sweep of the terrace,
there's very few retaining walls on Flora, and that people can maintain or reestablish that slope grade up to a flatter lawn area. So many of them were done and have lasted so long and served so well. It's hard for me to think that we don't have people who can still establish that slope of the terrace.
And my understanding was that was one of the differences a long time ago in establishing whether you were working class, you were on the same level as the sidewalk and the street and the curb, or you were step up. You were.
No.
Yes,
I heard you testify to that before.
that's true. It's true.
climate here?
Yes, right here.
That is a great name. It's like a superhero name.
Yay!
I'm a twice cancer survivor, so yes, indeed I am.
Oh.
Okay, so I am both the SNEA co-captain on the 4,000 block of Flora Place, and I am the CID director on the south side, which is across the street from Julia's house. So, I just wanted to make clear to you folks that there is a difference between SNEA, which is the Shaw Neighborhood Improvement Association, and the CID. The Shaw Neighborhood Improvement Association includes Flora Place, but it's the whole neighborhood. The CID is only Flora Place, the street itself. And so I do have a copy of the bylaws here that does say that each director, of which I am one, is able to give a vote for any business that's contemplated or done by the board. And so I feel that, and I had a discussion at a meeting over this very thing, that they are not to represent, the two people, including the president, is not to represent himself as the CID, because that's illegal, that he has to have a vote, or he can say that he's there as a person, but that he cannot say that he is there as a person. So and again, we're sorry. I personally do not like the median, the way the plan is median, but they didn't ask me. So, but we do ask for a variance because of this, because they really are trying, because of the I did see the tremendous, the runoff.
Erosion.
Oh, yeah. The erosion was just horrible. And they would try, and it's been like this for years before they bought it. And they have tried several times to plant grass, and there's just, it's because it's that easement tree, it's a huge oak tree, which I think is, photo. Anyway, thank you.
Questions, commissioners? Great, thank you.
Can I say something else? Allowed? I just wanted to mention that even we attempted to grow ground cover, and there was nothing for it to attach itself to. And same thing with laying sod, there was nothing ever to attach itself. I lived in this house for 6 years, and I lived directly next door for 10 years. So I've watched this for 16 years, and just felt like this was our best shot at having some sort of a front yard.
No, you can't say that.
Can't say that? No, I'm so sorry.
Yes, sir.
I have a question for legal counsel. Maybe what is this issue about area variance? Is that part of our...
No, that would not be applicable, yeah. Yeah, we can't do zoning here, just about the historic district either, yeah.
I'm trying to give away evidence.
Maybe a motion. You've given us a lecture before.
I know. Let Anthony do it.
No, we don't have that much time.
Oh.
Well, then I will move that the Preservation Board uphold the Director's denial as the retaining walls do not comply with the Shaw Historic District standards. We can open up for discussion.
Yeah. Make your point again.
Well, I live on a street that has a terrace too, and I know it's very difficult with shade trees and things of that sort, but that's just, they were established that way so that you look down the sweep of Flora and other places, these are fine, upstanding people, citizens of, and to put retaining walls and, railroad ties and things of that sort, it's just, it's it's a symbolic gesture. I'll have to look up the date, okay? Enacted. So, and especially with modern building materials, I mean, even if it were, if they could have real limestone like they do in Tular, Lafayette Square, places of that sort, I don't know, but this is not right.
And you're not influenced one way or the other by the neighborhood association that's made?
Well, they all live together. I understand that. We have a neighborhood like that too. And I'm sure it's a lovely design, and I think it's really great that they've worked really hard and but an ordinance is an ordinance, and that's what we're here for, to enforce the ordinances. Or variances,
I did say for the session, but I wanted to follow up because, you were talking about the topography throughout that entire street, and yes, that in a number of the large trees some slope to them coming up the street. So basically, there would be an ordinance without any purpose. There would be an ordinance without any purpose whatsoever. If you get an exception for this,
Oh, right, I see
theoretically,
what
you would
you're
have
saying, yeah.
an exception for all. So in that situation, and I've said this a number of times, one of the reasons I had issues on some of the reviews that put here, then we have to have some for variance. So the variance is based on erosion, based on particular topographical planting kind of situation, and if in fact this is replicated innumerable times throughout the entire block, it's not as easy.
we should see the whole block,
If
maybe.
it was, though, it would be,
Yeah.
we would want to be supportive of that.
Well, on our street, we had lived there 25 years, and the people across the street in town just had a horrible time keeping grass, because of the shade and other stuff. And Lou's hockey player moved in, had a landscape architect does it, it's just perfect. There is grass and there's soil, and it can be done,
Anybody else?
I guess my only concern is that there are precedents that the construction within the median area.
It is, although it was way more heavily in my mind, it has been constructed in the median permission, which it wasn't. I mean, the precedent is constructed without a permit and then lowered. That's, I don't know, if lowering this curve level would allow it to retain its purpose as a retaining wall. It would then be a stepping stone.
Right.
Which could be, I don't know, that, Commissioner. Any other comments?
Well, I respect Commissioner Pfaffman's comments, but to me this seems like a minor enough intrusion on that front landscape plan. And it is a special case where you've got some erosion issues, and we've got full support of everyone on that block, the neighborhood association, and the alderman. Without this documentation, I would be right with you, Commissioner Pfaffman, but this applicant has some support behind her for this idea, and if she's really facing this horrible erosion issue and this was the solution that she could afford, I say we let it stand.
I was told not to say anything like that because then it just looks pitiful, so I left that out.
Actually, it's one of the reasons for a variance.
Right.
I absolutely couldn't even afford this. I mean, this is a hardship for my family. I work for a nonprofit. I'm working on a PhD. I have 4 children in private school. I absolutely have no money to do anything better than this.
What's your PhD in?
Education. I teach for 2 different universities for the College of Ed, adjuncting. I make absolutely horrible money, so not to be silly, but this was the entire reason, like I said, based on the fact that, again, we modeled what was in all of the intersections. We thought we were doing the right thing. We would have absolutely no way of knowing that they didn't have a permit for that work. We would never have known that.
Unless you would ask for a permit for your work for them.
Well, there you go. And we're apologizing for, that was just a bad call on our part, not having done any work on the outside of our home. But this is what we can afford. I mean, that was brought to us to this kind of stone and that kind of thing. That's absolutely not possible for us. And now this has already been bought and paid for. I mean,
To follow up to that, you can tell us how much this all costs?
I think we spent about $3,000.
So how much, when did you?
Yes, I know. This is a contract.
So
In the shop.
you have an idea how much?
And did you know about the permit?
Run the company.
Okay.
So any sense of what the cost of stone would
I can't really estimate that, but I do know when we were looking at materials, it was white per stone. We did look into it, and it looked lovely, or I would even agree with myself. It's like we have a whole lot of options, so
Oh, yeah.
at least. Some of the ones we looked at were 3 times. And it also should be known then, since I'm off talk again, that when, I guess someone from this office
You
talked
got
to
'em.
someone on our street, they told us that what they could recommend was, in fact, railroad ties. That would be approved. And that was when I started to, cry. And I just find that really hard to believe about this stuff.
That,
It's not.
I'm not sure, I'm not sure this is going to be, but I know railroad ties would not.
And I would never go that route.
Well,
And there are quite a few retaining walls in Florida. They're just made of a different material, and I fully realize that, but
Commissioner Patton?
would you let Betsy go first now?
The building permit application, the estimated project cost is $1,500.
1,500?
Yeah.
Only because it was first going to be much higher than this, as well as capstone. There's another entire pallet and a half of this material on the driveway. So, I think we probably underestimated, I don't know, but it's all riches.
Actually, you don't want to admit that.
Trying to be honest.
Well, I just wanted to comment for the rest of the commissioners that I have a certain rule of thumb. You know, we say in preservation, demolition is forever. You know, you can never get these buildings back or whole. Something like this can be remediated. Because these
You
are
make one motion a year.
I know.
Now you're attempting to take your
Well, then
own.
you're taking it
You're
away.
taking your own motion back.
Okay,
Well,
you didn't withdraw it, did you?
Okay, Commissioners, we have a motion on the floor. It's moved to approve the draft denial. I'm going to call a roll call vote. Commissioner Schmidt, do you vote yes or no? Commissioner Busy, do you vote yes or no?
No.
Commissioner Colleen, do you vote yes or no?
No.
Commissioner Robinson, do you vote yes or no?
No.
Commissioner Passman, do you vote yes or no?
No.
You vote no on your own motion?
Yes.
I wanted to open it up for discussion, you guys.
Okay, Commissioners, we have not upheld the director's denial. Do you need a motion?
No.
It will certainly be approved.
Okay, so for purposes now, will you make a motion?
Yes. Well, I move that the Preservation Board approve the director's, no.
Seriously? Melanie? One motion a year. Okay, the
We
commissioner's
approve.
motion is to overturn the director's
Right,
denial.
thank you.
Is there a second?
Second, my second is based on the fact that there was
Do you want to amend your motion to include that language?
Sure.
Okay, and then would you second that amendment?
Could it be said again so the recording picks it up?
That being the
Yeah, the
erosion.
motion on the floor is to overturn the director's denial and to approve this by a variance based upon the unique topographical features and hardship demonstrated by the applicant's testimony. Okay, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. Okay. Goldman, are you here yet?
Yes, he is here.
Thank you.
Agenda item A1219, Goldman.
Richard has.
Oh, Richard has it. Okay, Michael Quinn is the potential owner is here.
Michael Quinn.
Okay, I'm Jan Cameron from the Cultural Research Trust. I guess I'm going to have to promise to tell the truth, but I will. This site, this is probably
penthouse, new swing house to be constructed on Dolman, which, as you all know, is a fairly decimated area, or was, on the eastern edge of the Lafayette Square Historic District. Now, what these colors mean here is that the orange is the boundary of the National Register District, which cut out essentially a vacant area. However, the local district, which is our jurisdiction, continues in the green area, as well as the orange area. And that's the site indicated in the dotted line. That width of the parcel is existing. It was not subdivided for this project, but it was subdivided, I think, for a previous proposal a few years ago that never went anywhere. And this is the proposal by Diversified Development, John Muller. He's built many projects. You're all familiar with the work that he's been doing on Carroll. This is essentially the same design. All of them were based on a particular model example. This design, however, will have round arches on the first story, which brings it a little bit closer than the buildings on Carroll Street to the model example, which is this building. So there are some deviations, and I have to say that with the number of infill that's happened on Dolman, there have been slight variations for cornices and a few other things that have creeped into the approval. One of them being some kind of flexibility as to exposed elevation. Now, if you know, let me go back. This is the site plan. Essentially on this wide lot, there is another wide lot over here so that all three of these facades will remain exposed. There'll never be another building built close to them. Okay? And these are the proposed side elevations. This is not the latest revision that I had because I asked John to relocate these windows so that they lined up similarly to this elevation here. But generally, by the half point of the side elevations, we allow some deviation. They're not really that prominently visible from the street, so they're here to be showing some paired buildings. Those, of course, do not exist on the model example. And this is the site looking, it's on the west side of Dolman, and there are a few historic buildings remaining on that side, and we are looking south. Bob, correct me if I get confused, because Dolman has changed substantially. Now we are at the end up by Park, looking back south towards the site. That is the new infill, sort of at the corner. The community garden is right here. This is the site that we're talking about, over here. We're back at the site just to locate you. Now we're going south on the same side of the street. There's a historic building here, and then this large building that was built a couple of years ago. Corner, back north on the same side of the street. You can see the pattern of development does not really reflect a lot of the blocks there, but that's what's happening. So, again, now we're looking, where are we here, Bob?
North, next block.
Next block north, okay. A little remnant of the historic row houses that once populated these two blocks of Dolman, and then these are new construction, except for the one at the very end. And it's a historic church. And this is the last infill that you saw for Carl Miller, and it's finishing up the exterior pretty well. You're pleased with that, right?
Very much.
Okay. Another little singleton. This is on the opposite side of the street. We're heading towards the factory building, and this is the factory building parking lot, which brings us back to Park Avenue. Okay. End my slide. Okay, the staff is recommending approval. We understand that the Lafayette Square Restoration Group has some concerns about, as I said, some deviations from the model example, and I'll let them talk about that. But at this point, we're recommending preliminary approval and with the condition that staff can resolve any outstanding issues. Any questions?
There are three people people going to testify? Is there anyone present to testify against this? Okay. Michael Quinn?
Yes, here. And I was going to testify for it.
Yeah, whatever. You may not have had to have testified at all,
Oh, okay.
but I want to give you a chance. Is there anything you'd like to add to the presentation?
I believe that there was one thing you said I wasn't sure I understood. You said there was nothing going to be built on either side of it.
Very closely on either.
Well, I know that the gentleman who I bought the lot from is planning to build a house on the south side, very close to get to his house that I'm building.
Oh, well, that's not the way I understood it from the developer, but that would
He's
be.
planning to build one maybe
I
3
consider it.
feet from my property line, which would be 7 feet from, if he can, get it.
And that would be good, because that would be something that the staff would certainly support.
Yeah.
One of the other things I should mention is I talked to Mr. Muller, the developer, earlier today, and he said that he would be willing to work to make everyone happy with the design.
Yeah, we're basically replicating the design that he's in the process of building right now on Carroll, and it's almost identical to that one. So if that one was approved, I was understood that, or I was under the understanding that mine would be fine.
I'll make another motion.
Okay. But that's all I know.
Ben?
I'll go first.
Let Keith go first.
She's my understudy, so I'll go first.
Is she going to go also?
She may, maybe not, if I forget something. The hard copy is a little bigger of the pictures that are up there. What we have here is a straight-on view.
Thank you.
There we go. Yeah. This is the historic model example, straight-on view. This is a house that was built by the same contractor across the street, which is the one house Jan didn't show you. This is the three-quarter view. Now, this is the historic model example, and this is what was built. You will notice the door. Our main concern right now, because the house that's proposed now does have the full 180-degree arch on the windows. It does have a closer representation of the cornice. The house here, that cornice is the typical cornice that's being built on Carroll that we did not like.
I didn't either. I would not have accepted that one.
So here's the crux of our main issue is that this house, even with the full 180-degree arch over the door, does not replicate the historic model example. And one of the main concerns is this house is going to be kind of a standalone. I mean, these are kind of okay when they're in a row and they're kind of crowded, look like the typical row houses that we have. So the smaller door works. But we're going to have a standalone house that we're using a 3-story house as an example to build a 2-story house. And we've got the door cut down. So our main thing that we would like to see changed is that this door and these stairs not look like this, which is what the plans now show. The other thing is that on the plans it's difficult to see. This cornice is drawn on the plans is not as robust as the actual historic model example. They're not as wide. The overhang is not as wide. Brackets don't look as large on the plan. It is a small detail drawing, and I get to see. We would like to have that cornice have the presence that HME has. So it is exposed, so it needs to have stronger presence than this house, the new house across the street. We would love to see the double doors, but definitely the stairs and the width of the opening needs to be made bigger. This drawing shows that door on this proposed house is to be that narrow slot. And the cornice width, and actually, the historic model example has a smooth finish foundation. I have never thought that this stone that he uses on his foundations looks good. I personally think that the smooth finish is better, so I would go for the smooth finish. Now, he's also correct that you'll notice the house is built has rectangular windows. The HME has an arch on the basement window. The plan does have arch, so he's corrected that. And he's also corrected the fact that the sidewalls come to the top of the cornice, that the cornice should be on the front of the house and not on top of the house. So we're asking for that door to be totally redesigned. Thank you.
Any questions? Ken, what do you get? You want to? Sure.
I'm new to this side of it. I used to.
Your name for the record.
Oh, Suzanne Sessions, 1831 Kennett Place, Lafayette Square. I guess the easiest thing to be able to say about it is we like the historic example. It's wonderful. If we could get that, I think all the problems would be solved. The builder and the designer have done many of them, but they haven't done all of them. But there's so few that would have to be done to be changing. It would be gracious, and this is not gracious the way it's going to be. It's going to have too narrow an opening. It's going to spoil. This is going to be an exposed building, and very few changes would make it quite nice. And so that's what I'm saying. And the other thing I'm saying is I've heard comments from everybody in my neighborhood. Oh, Carroll Place, yeah, well, Carroll Street, well, it's just kind of a little bit of this and a little bit of that, and it's, can't do much about it. You can do something about it. Every time a new house comes up for approval, we can get what looks right on it. Don't give up on it just because there are some that passed that maybe aren't as good as they are. I say we save Carroll. Not Carroll, I'm sorry, Dolman. We get it. We get what we want, and it looks like it belongs, and it's back to where it was, and it isn't, as I call it, postmodern Victorian. By that, it's fly pieces style that is not part of it. And that's really all I have to say. Thank you.
Then while you're here.
Please, yeah. A couple of things. Okay, first of all, as I mentioned, the owner of the lot on either side of the house that I'm proposing to build, he's going to build another house. So there will be a house very close to the south side of my house, my proposed house. And eventually on the other side as well. They bought the land, they're not building it for another year. So there will be houses on both sides, but one will be much closer and one will be a little further away. I'm perfectly happy to try to replicate that original HME cornice, and I thought that what he's got planned is much better than all the other houses he's did, and I would not have accepted that cornice, so I'm actually fine with that. But I thought the one that he had planned looked pretty good, so we can come together on what he needs to do. I'm fine with that. On the door and the stairs look to be about the same width. I don't know how we could fix that anymore, but the door, I'm open to figuring out how to make that better. But my only question is, he's building, I wish you had a picture of the one on Carroll that he's building right now, because that's my house. They are building the one that I took the plans from, and it's exactly what I'm building. So I wish that was the picture that you had up there. I don't know. It looks like you want to make the door a little bit wider.
Wider door, and be able to possibly have double doors as opposed to the single door, as on the model example.
Okay, well, they didn't do that on the one that's going up right now. And again, when you're looking at that, you're looking at a couple more thousands of dollars, and already this is a lot of money. So I would say that I would be willing to work, or I would like to work on some of these issues, but on the door, I think that's going to cost some serious money to put another door in there. I mean, then you're talking about another $15,000, I don't know, I'm not sure. So some of these things, I don't know how this works, I've never done it before, but I want to make this house look better than the ones that he put up on Carroll. And so I thought that it was going to be. And since the one that's going up there now was approved, I just assumed that, since this one, the one I'm building is identical, I thought it would be approved too, so.
When is construction plan to start?
On mine, they're going to start digging in a few weeks, or that was the plan, to start digging. So the construction would be, after the basement is dug, so probably a month. And the foundation, what I was wanting to do, I don't like what he's been using either on those foundations, but what I wanted to use was literally looks like the rough limestone blocks that are on many of the houses in the neighborhood. Yeah, like the garden. Yeah, there's one that just went up. It's not the one right next to the garden, but the one next to that. Yeah, and I really like that. It's real limestone textured, and that's what I was proposing. Or actually, more money. Well, anyway, that's what he told me he was going to put on there. So he was not going to be those. So that would be a plus as well. Yeah. So I think that's it.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Patrick. The preliminary approval. So this is a moment at which we tell them, yeah, do this, or yeah, don't do this. And if we say, yeah, don't do this, they've got to come back again with a different one.
And we can't just say, let staff work with that.
I mean, I don't know if taking effect is exactly what we're supposed to do. If we say yes, we ought to say why, and if we say no, we ought to say that gives both the applicant and none of which they actually need.
Right, that's true. Okay. Well, then I would like to propose that the Preservation Board do not grant preliminary approval because of some of the things that came up, because of the doorway and the cornice and things of those sorts. And then they will come back to it.
For preliminary approval.
Yeah. Preliminary approval, yeah.
Okay.
Discussion?
Do we need to get more specific on our list of items to work on?
I think we can do that discussion.
Okay.
I mean, obviously, there seems to be some significant differences between the model example presented and the house that was actually built. And there's testimony that takes us to be a little more consistent with adherence to, for example, if we supported this motion, that is what we would do. Adherence to a model. Door entry, foundation.
Steps, cornice.
Well, right, they were talking about double door. It appears to me that the one on the right, the model example, that's a door and then a window next to it. In other words, it's not a double door.
Yeah, I think it's a double door, I didn't think so.
That's probably a double door.
Think so?
It's a double. You have one door open, but the other one's fixed unless you want.
Further discussion?
Well, that's the model example that was chosen, so if we want to match that look, I think you need the double door. Another thing that I noticed, I don't know if this was part of the testimony, is this, the cornice on the building that was built there on the bottom right, it's kind of sticking up like a mushroom above the house. I'd like to see the bricks go up and meet that. Maybe they step down or something, but I'm just not used to seeing that historically in Lafayette Square or anywhere, a cornice. Have you seen that anywhere?
No. Western movie.
What I'm talking about is, it's a simple step of this parapet. We don't have to go all the way back. Keep that.
They're showing
It does have it level.
Yes, and there's a better picture of the door.
Okay.
Sure.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay, good.
Could I ask a question? Since the next meeting will be the end of January, would it be possible for them to get a foundation-only permit that would allow Mr. Quinn to proceed?
We have no problem with it.
Yeah,
Oh,
right.
that foundation's part of our discussion, though. What's the finish of the foundation?
I think you said it's,
Yeah, I'm fine with, I don't want that foundation there. I would rather do the limestone, the real thing.
yeah.
Yeah, we agree with this foundation.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if we could do that,
We have a bake sale and all.
And to make this clear for the record, we do not grant preliminary approval for the house, and we direct the applicant to work with the staff to obtain a foundation-only permit using material consistent with.
That was good.
That was good.
Did that get recorded or recorded by, there was an amendment to the motion, but I didn't know if it got recorded.
I don't think we could be heard.
Okay, but the amended motion, I preliminary approval, but direct the applicant to work with staff towards getting a foundation-only permit, structural and material, free material. And that's it. All those in favor of this motion signify. Back. Before I offer this for a vote, is this on this agenda item or on the previous one?
This one.
Okay.
Yeah, the previous one was fine. So my issue with this whole postmodern neo-storage stuff is that, so my issue is that to replicate this house exactly is, I think it infringes on whoever the designer, right? That designer is probably dead at this point. But my point is that while I understand model examples, I don't think that we should be copying word for word, look for look, exactly what another house looks like. I would take issue with that if I were 110 today and had worked on one of these houses. That would be a problem for me.
Fair enough. The adherence to a model example need not be slavish copying, but there are things that distinguish some construction and what has been taken out. More close notice of it. And this is Lafayette Square, the land of Connor. where this issue has been built out over decades.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
I like it.
One thing about the door, the wider door, the larger door, sort of there's more of a welcoming, coming by house. Sort of just the opposite of what you see out in St. Charles County with, double door garages right next. You don't even know where the front entrance is. So
you are saying that just to get my vote. That is excellent.
Yes.
I very much like that way of arguing. Yes, sir.
So I appreciate that this is a preliminary review, so perhaps I was thinking about this in the way that I ought to. But I thought that perhaps we would grant preliminary approval subject to review of final detail materials by cultural resources. With regard to the foundation stone, the doorway, exactly how the
had explicit testimony from the neighbors that we pay more attention. And I thought the Conservation Board could send back a message that we heard that, and with the amendment, we're not slowing anything down.
Right.
Unless they're unable to conform. I've punished Lofty Square for years for his vinyl fences for friends, but I'm over it now. 10 years later. And I'd like to send a friendly message back to him. Okay, Commissioners, there is a motion on the floor as amended. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Agenda item C.
Anyway, yes, me too. That we had a picture of it, and it was raining, and it's just shinier than white patent. I mean, it was just awful.
I know, I get to look at one every day.
And they're such good members of the association. Next week, you know.
Here at home.
Oh, okay, I know what you mean.
Just before the big hole. Who's doing agenda item C?
Hang on just a second. Okay, thanks. Sorry, I was getting contact information. Floor? This is a new application, and I'm still Jane Cameron, and I'm still telling the truth. This is a proposal for 2 new signs to be constructed at this building, which is now called Taylor Arts Building, and will have artist space within it. The owner of the building is here and can go into that in more detail. But we had originally received an application to construct 2 pretty ordinary signs on the wall that you see in this photo, here and here. And that would have complied with the standards, but they were pretty typical signs. And so we asked that the neighborhood perhaps make contact and discuss with the building owner some alternatives that they would be more happy with and that would achieve what the owner was trying to do. So they did that, and so we have a new application in front of us for 2 pylon signs. And the only problem with that is that the standards specifically say that no pylon signs are allowed in the historic district. Now, I'm sure that when that was written, and it has existed in the standards long before they were revised, they meant pylon signs that for service stations and things like that. But nonetheless, these 2 signs are pylon signs, and one of them will be erected to the right of the entry to the building, facing North Taylor, right about here. It is, in fact, a freestanding sign, which makes it a pylon sign, but it's going to be erected very close to the building facade. This is the site plan, and you can see it's on the northern edge of the Central West End, in fact, in the area that was recently added to. Again, what you're seeing here is the National Register District and then the local district. Okay. So here is the site plan where we have, orient myself, the building. Yeah, okay, and so the smaller of the 2 signs will be here. And the larger of the 2 signs is proposed to be erected inside the parking lot, which you may have noticed has a fairly tall fence. There's a wall and then a fence erected on top of that. So this is the proposed sign, and I'm sorry I had to scan this so it doesn't reproduce really well, but this is a 6 foot 4 inch sign that will be at the entry. And it will be lit from the interior with LED lights, and I believe the artist that designed it is here, and he'll go into more detail on that. But essentially, that's the sign, and the building owner's icon is there. So there really isn't any advertising or anything other than the number of the building. And this is the largest sign, which is 14.5 feet, to be erected in the parking lot. And the idea of this base, large base, will be so that this portion of it is above the fence, which I have a better shot of later. The material of both signs, I should say, is stainless steel. It's another shot of the front of the building. And that's the general location of the sign. And
The general location again?
I'm sorry? It's going to be here. That's correct, right? It's not going to be in front of any of the decorative detail, stone detailing. It'll be here.
That's correct.
Very close to the building. And then it will be at this corner, right here. You can see the stone stone wall is about 4 feet, and then there's a 5-foot fence on top of it.
Goes up 77 inches tall.
So, and some context, now we're standing the bottom one shows that we're standing inside the parking lot, and that's just the vicinity, so a little grounded. Okay. So, the staff is recommending that the smaller sign be approved. And, well, this is a new application, but we're going to need some more additional details on it, because I just have the drawings that I've just shown you. So the smaller sign to be mounted by the entry be approved, and that the other sign not be approved to be considerably reduced in size. Now, I should say that they need a variance for the height of that sign, the 14-foot sign, and they also, of course, need an encroachment permit for the other sign that will be mounted in the public right-of-way.
Neither of which is our issue.
Correct.
What are the two heights again, please?
A little over 6 feet for the smaller one, and a little over 14 feet for the other one.
And the 14 feet is the one that's on the corner.
Yes.
And that looks like a law firm?
It is in fact a law firm, but again, I should have probably mentioned, let's go back to the size, the design. The actual logo or recognition of the law firm is relatively small. This is 42 inches high and 37 inches wide. So it's well within the... Oh, and one other thing that I should have said, that the standards also say that only one sign is allowed for a corner property, and this is in fact not even a corner property.
And the 14-foot one is the same size, but just giant? The same design, just giant?
No, it's different. These will have the numerals kind of pre-standard, and this will be...
That's the 6-footer there.
Sign like.
Okay. Questions? Okay, we've got the applicant. You can start right there.
Okay, thank you. Actually, I have a couple of show-and-tell items for today. My name's Kurt Wolfram, and I am the building owner and tenant of the building. And I did want to, David Jaworski is with us in the room, and he's the artist. And I wanted to...
That's much smaller.
We have special things in our shop, and so we just submerged this in some growing liquid, and it's...
I don't mind those at all.
Can't prove it.
3D printer, no. I do have one of the signs, the one that the office is recommending or permitting. I did want to make one very important difference on this sign. We have decided to eliminate the post and so the sign will sit closer to the ground, and will have a foot rather than, and if I could just maybe grab the model from you, it'll essentially be this part above my fist will sit flush with the concrete, and this post will sit on this base, and this post will be gone. And I think that helps eliminate some of the issues regarding the pylon. This was built before we talked with the office last week. So I think that helps it be less of a pylon.
This part will be the same size, you just won't make that bigger.
No. Correct. The sign is going to
So
shrink.
instead of 6 feet now, you're at like 3.5 feet.
So I think that will be a little more
How often
pleasing.
does this go around?
Huh?
How often does this go around?
It's only going to revolve maybe, 2 or 3 times a second.
And we did meet with Bill Seibert after the kind of ordinary, as said, sign was frowned upon, and we met with Bill and consulted with Bill, and he's part of the Central West End, and I don't know if I know the whole title of their committee, but it's the Central West End Committee that the Cultural Resources Office consults with, or listens to when these kinds of applications are submitted. The second sign, the larger one, is sitting, as you saw in some of those pictures, at the corner, and it needs to be larger for 2 reasons. First of all, it sits that far away from the building that the sign needs some size to it, and it doesn't really and won't look that big because it's sitting so close to the corner and so far away from the building itself that it gives it some perspective being that size. And David really can talk more about that and better than myself. And I think, the property does sit on the corner. I'm not really sure I quite understand why it's not considered a corner property. It is on the corner of Olive and Taylor, and we do have, a building line that runs both on Olive and Taylor. The kind of idea for this sign, which we spent a lot of money, a lot of time, and a lot of effort to painstakingly restore this building using historic preservation tax credits, and we spent more on the building than was really made any sense. But I'm going to live the rest of my law practice, God willing, 20 or 30 years in that building, so I built it for myself as much as anybody. The kind of the motivation for the sign, and let me back up, I don't believe you should put your name on the building. It shouldn't be known as the Wolfgram Law Building. I think that's disrespectful to our cultural institutions, including this building. And we spent a lot of money and a lot of time and hired somebody with specialized training, knowledge, and skill to restore the facade. And we spent a lot of that money, time, and effort filling in holes that had been, drilled into the limestone where people had attached various signs, including all the prior tenants. So we are being more respectful of the building and not attaching these signs to the building and drilling into the limestone. And we think that this is really maybe an advance in how we should think about how signs are attached or not attached to buildings. And so this is the Dorchester sign, and I'll just have that passed around. That was really this is 665 Skinker, and was kind of the motivation for this design of the 462 numbering rather than putting, a commercial sign up. And so I think if you just kind of, potato, I think it's you can call it a pylon sign. One of the things that are permitted in the historic district are ground signs, and I think it could be considered a ground sign. And I have a couple of examples of some very large ground signs that I think kind of show that that our sign is not so dissimilar that you couldn't call it a ground sign. These are the townhome at the corner of Newstead and Windle, and then the other is the Basilica sign at the corner of Windle and Taylor. This is another example of a sign which exists in the district, and you can have them, yes.
Would you like to confirm that?
Yes, I would. Thank you. Also, I did, and we submitted a variance request for the sign that sits on Taylor. We did find out from the city, though, that we are outside of we are set back enough that the city property extends from the curb towards the building 12 feet, and so the sign that's going to sit next to the front of the building is actually beyond that, and it will be within 10 inches of the building. According to some discussion we've had with the city, even though we've submitted this variance request for the city right-of-way, that we are actually beyond the city right-of-way and may not need that. But we did submit proof of insurance and other evidence that would, be part of our application for that. I understand that's not necessarily your concern or purview.
It isn't, although ordinance 69423 requires that whatever we approve be in accordance with the zoning provision, so that if you did not get the variance and it found to be outside the provision, our approval would be withdrawn.
Okay. And so I do think that we are not in the city right away because we are set back.
You may argue that one with that.
Right, beyond the 12 feet. So I think those were the points that I wanted to make. The fact that, I think the larger sign that sits on the corner could be called a ground sign rather than a pylon sign, and is similar to some of the examples we've submitted. Also, that we are on a corner. And I think the last thing is that, we're also here for some guidance, so that if there were a way to improve this, we're certainly open to, complying with the cultural resources rules and regulations, and still be committed to modify the sign in some way so that it's more pleasing to the board.
Which sign do you have to have?
We would prefer to have the 462.
Oh, that one?
Although both are beautiful. So.
We have no problem with those.
Yes. So David Jaworski, the artist, is here with us, and I'll turn it over to David in case he has something to supplement.
I can sort of share with you some of the logic behind thinking that went into designing these. As signage goes, the way I looked at it was, this is signage for people looking for the building or looking for something along the street that would say, oh, I'm at the Arts Building and here I am. So that means that it's going to be viewed from the outside. So in order for our larger sign to be viewed, you really need to clear the fence. Well, you got 77 inches there before you even start the sign. So in my way of thinking, your sign is really, 5, so you got 8 feet, 9 feet there. So it's really 9 feet, I think. Is that right? 6. Yeah, 9.
Oh, the
8 feet. Anyway, the height.
The height isn't going to be all right.
Oh, well, that was what I understood as the variance problem was.
Not for us.
Okay. Well, anyway.
For us, it's a question of the ordinance requiring one sign, not two, unless we decided you were a corner building in the parking lot, actually the building. And the second would be not the first sign as revised as a pylon sign or not.
Okay. So anyway, I'll just share with you some of the thinking that went into these. As Kurt said, he didn't want to have these representative of just his law firm. So they're actually designed so that these panels here are actually where the signage would go, and those are made removable. So we can, if he were to sell the building or whatever, we could remove his signage, put new signage on there, and the new owner would
Wouldn't the new buyer have to have the initials WL?
No, it wouldn't, because we'd
Westlake.
we'd simply change out the signage on it so that that's the way it's designed.
What about on the 462 sign?
Same thing. The front panel comes off so that we can actually attach a new logo. So it was designed to be adaptive to whomever buys the building. And also, the other side of this was, when you go into the interior of the building, it has a tremendous amount of Art Deco referencing in the architecture and so forth. So that's the reason for the look of both signs.
Yeah, I don't think he's ever going to take the sign cards off, though. Once they get their name on buildings and signs, they never come off.
That's the way they are.
We've got like 50 buildings that say Robert something.
Didn't this just when, that was the headquarters for the West End Word, and also,
St. Louis Review.
St. Louis Review.
Archdiocese Review. Our tenants include architectural firms, includes the Fox Performing Charitable Arts Foundation. We did have Shakespeare in the Park, was the largest tenant in the building, but has moved to the space where they now store all their crops. But we really are trying to have a connection to the Grand Art Center, or be that kind of link. It's also an area, we're on the north edge, and it's
really come around a long way.
It's come a really long way, and I think this will help anchor the north end of Central West End.
It could still look more than it could be from west.
You're right.
Well, and the other side of this too is Kurt is only taking two of the sides, so the other two sides are open to other people on the building.
Yeah. Keeping me out.
Yeah.
Okay, I won't say any more, but anyway, it's adaptive is all I'm trying to say.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Any other testimony? Questions for the artist or the applicant, commissioners? Okay, do you want to take the signs one at a time? Or take them both?
I think we should take them both.
Okay. Well,
yeah, take them both.
Yes, no. What do you want to do? Just one at a time? Tony?
Yes.
Okay.
I've got to recuse on this one.
You know why?
Yes, I do know why.
Okay.
That's good that he knows.
Okay, good. Okay. Tony, you want to make the first motion?
I move that the Preservation Board approve the building sign.
Is there a second? Second. Discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None approved. Tony, the second motion?
I move that the Preservation Board uphold the director's denial on the pylon sign.
Is there a second? Discussion?
Point of order.
This is, the pylon sign is the one that's in.
The director has not denied.
No,
it.
no,
Oh.
no.
I'm sorry.
This is the pilot.
Let me,
No. That doesn't have a pylon anymore.
Well, okay, not anymore. Okay, right.
Yeah.
Right.
He's removing the.
Okay, right.
okay, so I should
Yeah.
restate that motion
Your motion is to deny preliminary review.
to deny preliminary review, correct?
No. It's a new application.
I'm sorry.
Jim, what's our motion? Seriously.
To deny or approve
the application for a pylon sign.
Okay.
Okay.
The motion is to deny the application for the pylon sign. Is that seconded? Is there discussion?
Yeah, well, first and foremost, that, only allowed one sign.
Right.
So that would, and so it doesn't comply with that. And then secondly, while I understand, that corner, just a few blocks away, it's 14 inches taller than the height of this ceiling. That would be the ceiling beyond the drop here. Pretty significant. And this, in fact, is not a corner building, it's a corner parking lot.
Yeah, the sign was designed as Voltron. Would you like it?
With the sign itself?
Or Voltron.
Voltron, that's funny.
I mean, it's right in the West End. It would be a wink at its history, but it isn't. Further discussion, commissioners? Hearing none. All those in favor of the motion, which denies this application, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Commissioners, we're going to take a 2-minute break, and then we're going to...
Before we close, Rick, can I just get a clarification?
We are closed.
Oh, okay. Just a little off the record.
Yeah.
So is the one, the 462, the one she has her hand on, that's approved, and the other one's denied?
Yeah. Mine is a pylon.
Right, okay. And then the other one is denied. Okay.
And the thing is,
Other than the height?
You can put it on the building.
yeah, I love it, the Art Deco, attention to that. I love the fact that it's going to be lit, it's going to be noticed. I live in the neighborhood too, in fact, I live behind your parents. And going down Taylor, I mean, everybody's going to know where 462 is, it's like, you don't need to see it from 3 different, I think this is, well, I like this too, but.
Any train signs you want to bring back here? We like that.
Zippy?
We like your work.
And again, it's good.
That's a deadly one.
Yeah, right. It's really a heavy. Yeah. Tell your mom and dad hello.
I will,
Okay.
thank you.
Oh, you too. They're sweet. Dad, I really missed his charge of it. Kale in charge.
Right.
Is he okay? I haven't seen him. Is he? I couldn't open it over. He's still. I haven't seen him in a long time. Is he all right?
Yeah, he's doing well, yeah, they're both doing well.
Okay. Yeah.
Thank you.
Dorothea, yeah. It does, sure does, yeah. Okay. No, I like that. I like that Art Deco.
Thank you.
Yeah, but he's going for it now. He can barely be bothered. Yeah.
Construction sign enough, so,
They didn't need that big sign. He's so ugly. Of course, the artist wanted it.
No. Really? I appreciate that,
There's
but,
authenticity, it came right from inside.
yeah, I'm just like, I'm covered in mud, I'm like, but, yeah, so that's that.
We think building signs should be up on a post, should be right on the ground.
I wonder if there's one of these got something signature like that. There's something like it a minute.
Give a little.
Swallow.
Oh, no.
Guys here, when you talk to my guy, about my
I'm not sure. There's one guy I clicked on, the branch is odd.
He's the one who said he was.
It looks like super large space, which is.
My character is like this. And Nick very nice.
Oh, yeah, there was a lot of shade, but I'm, yeah,
It looks like there's one door that's like a very narrow.
All you believe, okay? Just
Right.
I mean,
Yeah, I don't remember. Like, I was a child. What the
okay.
I don't know what they put in there, but
Lady, you haven't seen nothing.
Not sure. I was the architect for that.
You can throw the reason out and put it on the record. Anything that you had no financial.
What's that?
Well, I did mention you work out. You and Schmidt.
Yeah, you mentioned it part.
But it's really,
I would argue.
Really?
Business owner.
Yeah, but if you've been down on that intersection across the Lister building and what, it to me, because of the vacant lot aspect, it looks like a filling station site, you know, and they don't want schnapps into the house. And I think that driving down Taylor, you're gonna see it, driving down Olive, you know, it's just around the corner. Remember, you were in the board, then the Busy Bee Loan Company or something on, what's that, on Chippewa or someplace, and they wanted the variance to paint their roof, you know, with the yellow and black.
Commissioners, we remember now. We are back in order. We're going to hear agenda item D, which is the appeal of a director's denial, and with your permission, I'd like Alderman Commissioner Schmidt to preside over this agenda item, as it may in fact be his last meeting with us. The public safety chairmanship is certainly going to change, and it is not clear yet who the designee of the public safety chair will be. So, Commissioner Schmidt, if you'd like to preside?
Well, in that case, I take back the who's there, and I'd like to throw in Paul McCartney and Wings. Someone knocking on my door, somebody ringing my bell. So
Mr. Bob Bettis is going to give a presentation.
Bob is with staff. I will tell the truth. Need to enter in ordinances 64689 as amended by ordinance 64932, and also the Fox Park ordinance, which is 66098. My presentation and the PowerPoint. Okay. What we have, it was a complaint. I'll give you the background first, and we'll kind of walk through the PowerPoint and discuss the issues at hand. We received a complaint about the installation of the new entryway without a permit. Went on site, and they were finishing up the installation. I believe the gentleman who left the room was actually on site that day. I'm not sure if he's going to come back or not. But he was one of the installers on site, as well as the owner was also there. The doors, the side lights, transom are not compliant with the Fox Park Historic District standards. Originally, it was a paired set of doors. Just to give some context. This is a shot from Google showing the paired door configuration. On the left, this was submitted from the applicant, and on the right shows the building before it was rehabbed, I think it's back in 07 or 08, also shows the paired door configuration along with the paired transom. So, go back to what has been constructed. When I talked to, everybody's back. When I talked to the contractor, they stated that they thought they had a permit. I spoke with a person on the phone who said that they didn't get a permit, but they will, quote, they'll make it right. That's what I was told at the time. They applied for a permit to retain this work. And that was what I talked to the people who did the work. Now, the standards themselves are very clear. I want to make sure you read this so everybody understands what the standards state specifically and how it relates to what is there, what can be there, and what was there originally. Obviously, if you're going to replace a feature, it needs to be based on a historic model example. Now, that means everything. That doesn't mean, you have a single door configuration and you meet that. It's not what that means. A model example means you replicate the entire feature, which means glass, which means the skylight configuration, which means the transom configuration. That is a model example. It says there it can be a finished door that replicates the original or, again, based on a model example. A model example is not a contemporary door, which this is. The glass is contemporary. All of it's contemporary. Let's just say, and there are instances of this house type that have a single door configuration. They have not replicated the original entryway that you would see on that block, and they actually may have pictures of that to show you that. This is a contemporary door. The glass is incorrect. The transom's incorrect. It was all done without a building permit. So, that being said, when they applied for the permit, Andrea Gagan was here, and she had to talk to somebody on the phone. And I was sure to relay her story, what she had with him on the phone.
Yes, when I talked to the person on the phone, they too said that they were willing to put the original doors back like they were for the applicant, if that was what we required.
So we have two instances where they said they would put it back. Now let's flash forward to last week when I contacted True and Value. They said they will do what the owner wants to do. Now the owner says she wants to retain this. So we have a change in story. They initially they would fix this work, and now they've changed story and said they do not wish to do this. They would do what the owner wants to do. So keep that in mind. So there's a change in story. We have support from the alderperson as well as Fox Park Neighborhood Association in support of staff's recommendation. So the alderperson supports the staff as well as the Neighborhood Association supports staff. So that's the thing. So this is a substantial change. So again, let's just go to the slides again one more time just to illustrate what I'm saying again. So
have you submitted the letter from the alderperson as well
there,
as the letter from the neighborhood organization?
Just it, right here.
The record?
Yep, right here.
Thank you.
So again, let's go through these things. Here's context in the block showing what it looks like.
Okay.
This is what was there. And again, this is an appropriate configuration. This is, again, pictures of what was there pre-rehab before the owner bought it. And also, owner been on the left. Some examples of, again, some other dual configuration entries. They're numerous. And again, there are some that are single. And if they were looking to replicate a single entry, again, that'd be the entire entryway, the historic entryway, and not just part of it. So again, we're talking about the doors, sidewalks, and the transom as well.
Other questions of staff from the board?
We recommend that you uphold the staff's
Questions of staff? Shimoni Latham is here.
Shamani, yes, sir.
Shimoni, if you would let us know, and you swear to tell the truth?
Yes, sir. My apologies for all this. When I bought the house, I'm a new homeowner, and I did not recognize that I was in a historic district. I actually had a conversation with Andrea, about a 2-hour conversation, and learned a lot of things. So now I'm fully aware. When we went through this process, we were originally told we did not need a permit for this. So we placed the order for the doors based on that. The doors, the original doors were plexiglass. They weren't even glass. They were hollow. So they were basically, when we attempted to take them out, they buckled. They were installed before, I think, the historic format was put in place for this, and this was a single home family prior to the historic guidelines, from my understanding. So I went back, looked at the neighborhood. I have a whole entire handout of the 2 streets by me and on my street of doors that... I'm sorry, I'm submitting photos of doors around me that I modeled this after, and some that do not meet the codes around me. There's a lot of doors that do not meet the Fox Park standards around me. So this one I felt did. I stuck with the original colors, the same 3/4, and I looked at, there's also photos of designs for those fleur-de-lis designs in the street next to me. So I went with the simple design in the window. This door cost me a lot of money to install. I would not be able to afford reinstalling or taking something out. I saved quite a long time for this. Yeah, the original doors were insecure, they were hollow, they were plexiglass. I put up some mini blinds to be able to cover them, which that's fine. The instant we took them out, everything crumbled. It was all basically falling apart. I did not expand the size. I basically kept the original size, the original shape of the opening once everything was removed.
Is there a question from the commission?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Told you that you didn't need a
It
building
was
permit?
in conversation we worked with True Home Value, and I was asked if I was a historic home. I said I did not know. When I purchased this house, it was not disclosed to me if it was a historic home or not. And so I know True Home Value placed a phone call. I was not a part of those phone calls, and the doors were ordered after those phone calls were made.
Yes, and you testified that you would not be able to afford to replace this. Do you know how much you spent on this door?
It will roughly cost a little over $10,000.
Just for that door, or
The windows, the two side lights, and the door,
installed?
and a
Okay.
screen door on the back.
And have you looked into replacement, or you just know you don't have any money beyond?
Yeah, I saved it for 3 years for that. That would just be, I'm assuming to replace, even put two doors back in, it'd probably cost just as much if I went through the same company.
Okay. All right, thank you.
I'm a beer sales rep. We don't make a lot of money.
Do we have additional questions of the applicant? So we have a Don Miller, 4649, you know him?
I'm with True Home Value.
You swear to tell the truth?
Yeah. I'm with True Home Value. We've been remodeling, through companies associated with them for nearly 40 years. I've been with them for over 36 years, and this is something new to us to go, after the fact to try to get something approved. But when we went to, order this door, we had called, about a permit to see if there was a permit needed, and we were told no.
Who told you that?
That was a phone call to City Hall. So, so we proceeded with the order, and this is a single family home now. So that's why the doors like this and not two doors as far as that.
Any questions? Any questions from Mr. Miller from the board?
You don't know who you spoke to. You know what office to call.
It would have been the building permit, division. We apply for a permit. We do a lot of jobs with permits when it comes to homeowners associations and historic districts. We work with the homeowner to assist them go through that.
Did you make the call personally?
I did myself.
Okay.
Any other questions from the board yet?
Is there any way that we could check that with the,
Check what?
if if that was in fact said, that they didn't need to have a building permit?
No, that happens all the time, where people, they claim that, and there's absolutely no way of substantiating his claim. When I talked to him on the phone that day, it was clearly some miscommunication at their office I hear yelling on the phone, did so-and-so call so-and-so, did so-and-so call so-and-so? It was pretty clear to me at that time on the phone saying with this company, and even the subs, whatever, that somebody dropped the ball.
Yeah.
If they want to blame City Hall, that's fine, do that. But the issue to me is, will he replace the doors? I mean, period. Will Trim Value replace the doors as needed?
I can answer that for you because I actually make calls before I do any architecture work, and it's pretty simple for them to look it up and give you whether it's historic or not. It's one of the first things they do. Well, and so once City Hall knows that it's historic, then you have to get a building permit for it. You can't replace the door or windows without it.
All right, are there more questions? All right. Mary Wilson from 2744 Ackerman.
Yes,
Swear to tell the truth?
I do.
Okay, proceed.
I'm the block captain at 2700 Acromat. And when she got her doors, I tell you, it was just awesome that we had a young lady wanting to buy a house in our neighborhood. We, the 2700 block of Acromat, they call it the 27 Mac. We have a gang started in our block. It's been there on and on for so long, and we're just so happy to have decent people to come in our block to build our neighborhood up. Problems that went down in our neighborhood because we worked so hard to keep it going. So this is why we are here for her, because she stayed next door. This house was a Section 8 house for years, 20 years, and I know I've been to the weed and seed meeting and complaint, and that's why we had the weed and seed to come in our neighborhood. I don't think, we got a police substation. Dorothy and I run the police substation, 2700 Acromat, right at Ohio. She stay in the 2600 block. I stay in the 2700 block. This is why we're here, because we don't want this young lady to leave out our block, because we just really had so much time. We done had killing in our block. And it's just so awesome to have a decent person, and we willing to fight for her.
Ms. Wilson, are you familiar with the ordinances among the Park Historic District?
Yes.
And do you have any testimony with regard to any basis for any variances from the Historic District ordinance?
Well, when I came home that day, the guy was there doing her doors, and the door that they had taken down, it just flap. And she was standing up crying, and then he said, we have to put this door together. But it wasn't no way that they could have put that door back together and put it on.
Any other testimony that would provide a basis for a variance from any of the Park Historic District ordinances?
No, but I know Dr. Dorothy Wilson.
Well, let's find out from the board if we have any questions for Ms. Wilson first.
I do.
Go ahead.
I don't have any questions.
Oh, all right. So we can then go to Dorothy Borison from 2645 Accomack, and my first question is, are you going to tell the truth?
Well, I just want to say I'm a block
Are
captain.
you going to tell the truth?
Tell the truth.
Are you going to tell the truth?
She don't I swear to tell the truth.
Very good. Proceed.
Okay. I'm the block captain of the 2600 block. Mary and I have worked in this neighborhood for 30 years, improving it. Because we worked so hard, we were the first neighborhood to get weed and seed in the United States. Bill Clinton came to our neighborhood and talked. Now, that's because people work to improve this neighborhood. And it's people like this who move into the neighborhood that make it stable and nice. Now, what I would like to say is, before she moved in, there was a crappy door put up there, and nobody complained at all. And, you know, it has been a one-family building since before the historic code. This picture doesn't really show that there was one door, not two, put up there that she replaced. One door and a glass panel. And she replaced it with something extremely nice. Now, living in this neighborhood, I don't want to complain about something that's been an improvement to the neighborhood. I would like to complain when something has been pulling the neighborhood down. And this is certainly an improvement over anything that was in that building before she moved in. And so, you know, anything that improves our neighborhood is good. Now, she did not do anything to change the fact that this was one door. It was not two doors. But what she did was improve the look of it. It does not clash with other buildings in the area. There are many buildings in this area that have not doors exactly like this, because this is a really nice door, but certainly one door and some glass panels on each side. That's not an unusual thing in our neighborhood.
So what you're testifying is that she did not, in fact, replace the two doors that were presented to us, rather she replaced a single.
She replaced a single door with a single door.
The second was not a door, it was a stick.
I'm sorry,
It was a plastic, piece of plastic stuck up there. It was not plexiglass, it was not glass, and it was not a door. Very similar to what they did in the 700 block of Ann, where they just put a piece of wood instead of a door. You know, looks like a piece of plywood they stuck up.
Are there any questions from the board? No, we're finished. We have to move in, or I have to do this right.
I was wondering if it would make it any better if they could change the configuration of the glass on the inside. Because part of the problem is it's a Victorian design, and the house is more, you know, like, well, arts and crafts, I don't know, what would you call it?
The problem is, if you want to go the single door route, that's fine, but you have to find a model example, which calls for probably a divided transom, different glass, and beefier vertical elements that separate the door and the sidelines. So again, it's not out of the realm of possibility to do a single door, but again, that's not what has taken place here.
Well, I was just thinking about a compromise. Yeah.
Exact model example, which the code requires. Excuse me? That's not what we're debating.
But
Okay.
we can't make a compromise. I just was wondering.
Well, I mean, it's interesting that the original wood door was for a new wood door which replicates the original. The question here, I guess, is what is the original?
This, I mean, look up here. This is what was here before.
I understand that may be a sample, perhaps, of what it was built in.
No, this is at the actual house.
The right side's fixed.
Yeah.
It's always a two-family house. We did the research. Omni did the research. It was always a two-family house. Omni did the research back. It was a two-family house historically.
And therefore it would have.
Let's tend to go, if we're finished with questions from the board. Chris Schmidt, contractor.
Promise to tell the truth, and I've known Shalini for years and been to the, for a little over a year, been to the house several times, and she was dealing with True Value and getting the door when we had originally met, and was going through the process of picking it out, and I can tell you that that door is a fixed panel door on the right-hand side that was not operable whatsoever, and that it was plexiglass and of poor design and construction.
Do you have any further testimony with regard to ACs for variances from the Fox Park Historic District Court?
The only other thing I can tell you is that owning my own construction company and doing work in the city, it's not uncommon to make a phone call to the city and get told that you don't need a permit. Our office has something in place to call the historical side to verify that as well, because of that common occurrence happening.
But you were not part of that conversation in this circumstance. Any questions from the board? All right, and happily, I am chair, and therefore, unless there's a tie vote, I do not vote at this point. So is there a motion?
I recommend that the board uphold the director's denial as the installed front door and side lights do not comply with the Fox Park district standards.
There's a second, motion and second discussion.
So, agreed that probably was not two doors. Quite often in a historic district, you will fix when the door is when it becomes a single family, one of the doors is fixed and the other door is operable. So that's not uncommon. In fact, that is typical of what you do so that you can keep the look of two doors, which still complies with the historic district standard, even though it's not operable. And again, plexiglass can be replaced with real glass. I mean, if the door's obviously in such bad condition that it in fact needs to be completely replaced, then it should be replaced with something that is like what is existing, or a model example if you decide to do a single door. What we have there currently, unfortunately, is not a model example by any stretch of what a historic single door would have looked like. In fact, I think of the photos that were presented into record, there was only one door that met the criteria of historic model example, which could be replicated. And it shouldn't, $10,000 is too much for this door. Install.
Is there additional conversation, discussion?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. I would just, I guess, stress that both the president of the neighborhood association and the aldermen of this area have submitted a letter, asking us to uphold the historic standards. So while I respect the longtime neighbors' plight in this neighborhood and appreciate their appreciation for this young lady moving here, I think with this letter, what these folks are saying is that we can do better than this. This thing got built without a permit, and there were standards put in place to try to have these buildings, maintain an historic feel, and so that's really what we've been asked to do. So if this vote does not go your way, this is not the city of St. Louis saying we're against what you've done here, you're a bad person. It's just saying now their standards were put in place, and they're actually your neighbors who wrote these standards, and we've just been asked to uphold them. On the other hand, though, we do have an applicant here who has testified that she cannot afford to replace this. So I'm wondering if we should be discussing that matter here. There was an issue earlier tonight on Flora Place where we gave a variance based on that testimony without backup evidence showing that she truly could not afford to replace her retaining wall. And so I'm just wondering if we're looking at a double standard here, because this young lady has the same story, something that went in without a permit.
And so after this vote, and that would be in order to propose another motion.
So I just wanted board members to think about it.
I would not have supported that particular motion based on financial hardship. I was supporting it based on Flora Place based on other criteria, not because of...
And the fact that 40 people had signed a petition and support.
Not hardship, because there was no evidence of that other than that, other than her making that statement.
Okay, is there additional discussion on the motion on the floor, which is to uphold the denial?
Did you introduce all your ordinances?
Did I?
I'm sorry, I
You do. 64689, 64923, 663. Any additional questions? All right, so we'll take a vote on this. Commissioner Cowell.
No.
Commissioner Patton.
I don't know, let me think about it.
Pass. Commissioner Robinson. What's your motion?
So that's yes to the motion?
Commissioner Khalid.
No.
Commissioner Bidden.
Yes.
No.
That's 3 noes, 2 yeses, the motion carries. Is there another motion?
I move that this issue be tabled to allow the applicant to provide evidence of inability to pay for a replacement, financial hardship.
Is there a timing issue with the ordinance? I think that there would be a timing issue with the ordinance, but I'll ask the applicant, correct me if I'm misreading it. That also, you could reopen the testimony if you are soliciting further testimony. I might ask, how many days do we have to approve this? I don't know what day the
What date is
application.
the appeal?
I mean, it's past the 30 days. I mean,
Okay, that's what I'm asking.
It's past the 30 days. Well, because you deferred last month.
Oh, right, it was scheduled for December, or November meeting, and then because we had to delay that meeting, it was deferred till.
And I understand that was at the applicant's request, so we typically don't enforce against them, but we do maintain our own, standards as far as time, although we don't enforce them against them in that instance. But we would have a time issue, and I didn't know what date that application came in, so that's why I'm asking.
Can I get further testimony from Cultural Resources?
Sure, go ahead.
Mr. Bettis, did I hear clearly that you stated that the contractor would in fact replace this door?
Both myself and Ms. Gagan spoke with them, and they said they would correct the issue.
Okay, so, okay.
Well, we have a motion. Did we get a second from
We
Mr.
didn't.
Khalid? Is there a second to Mr. Khalid's motion? So there is a second in it.
Okay.
May I say something about that?
Not yet.
So, we've got two people from staff that have testified that in fact the contractor said they would correct this, and now we're going against that testimony and trying to, well, I don't know what we're exactly doing, but testimony that said that they would make this right, and doing anything other than the original motion does not allow them to keep their word.
But if we follow that line of logic, the applicant could be left high and dry by true home value and be stuck with a $10,000 replacement bill. So I'd love to believe that. I mean, I do not doubt staff at all on that. But will true home value follow through on that promise? I don't want to stick the applicant.
We've already heard all the testimony. It would have to be the board that would request us to reopen testimony with regard to hardship. Right. Right. Okay, is there such a request?
I move that we reopen testimony.
Is there a second? Motion and a second that we reopen So Ms. Tammany Latham, do you have any evidence of the cost of these doors and evidence of the financial hardship that this would place upon you to replace?
I have evidence, like my contract for the cost of the doors. I did not print out my bank records. I can bring that. That's what is needed. To follow up,
Do you wish to present that?
I would like
Perhaps we can get a copy.
Yes,
so that
I will
she
need
has-
it.
Copy of that.
Yes.
We already have that.
Okay.
You can get back to it.
as far
Can
as,
I see that, Bob?
She needs to mark it. What? You might want to make sure it's the same thing.
I believe they're the same thing.
Yeah.
yes, ma'am.
AB number on here, I don't see anything different. Okay.
I can more, yes, I can bring in bank records. As far as sitting there that day when all this was going on and Bob showing up and everything basically stopping, the original infrastructure was already taken out, so a door had to be put in. The contractors did stop what they were doing and did make phone calls, and literally they said they would correct this as in meaning going to get a permit, and left. One contractor left that day in the middle of the install to go and get a permit. That's what, and I'm pretty sure, I think it was Andrea who they worked with that day, coming in, like during the middle of the install, and that's what they were trying to correct.
I talked to someone on the phone who said that they would put doors back like this.
Any additional questions of Ms.?
It was one of the bosses, but I don't know who.
From True.
Yeah.
I'm sorry?
Additional question?
Yes, so what you're saying is that the install was stopped.
They were almost finished. I mean, they were nearly finished. I mean, they were putting the unit in basically. I mean, it was a pre-unit. They were putting it in place when I went out there. It was done.
So, okay, so was it installed or was it not installed?
The original doors were out,
Okay,
and I think the framing was in, but the doors were not in. The windows and stuff were not in.
Everything
So
was
we
out.
stopped work.
okay,
They one left to go and start getting the permit.
sure, but there was no permit issued and the doors still went in.
Because the original doors were crumbled. Yeah, so a door
So-
basically had to go in.
No, didn't. The plywood could have gone in to secure it initially until such time that you got a permit.
Not based on my opinion, but.
We're only taking additional testimony on the hardship, I'm sorry, and it's your issue. Because you don't have personal knowledge about our bank accounts and the cost of them. Do we need additional testimony? Would you like to hear additional testimony regarding how much she earns and so forth in terms of the hardship?
Unfortunately, we do have to ask you that, or you can submit documents.
I mean,
At a
I
later
might
date.
be able to pull it back and submit them off documents. It's all online. I can't submit documents.
So that would go along with my original motion.
We need something to look at now, correct?
I mean, like,
Unless we're-
you might need.
Right. This would be subject to, like, or
Actually, I have a question for Mr. Miller regarding this. How much would it cost to do this the way we want to have it done? You know? Have you looked into that?
We haven't estimated it, but it would roughly be about the same cost to put two doors, you know, in that opening inside, like, in the transoms like that.
Is your company willing to do that without any additional cost to the applicant?
No, we wouldn't be offering the place what we put in, and this is something, to completely replace what we just did. And I don't know who they had talked to that said we would have done that. I don't know who would have said that we would have just, taken those doors out and replaced them with something else. They're custom doors. They're made to fit just for that opening. They're not made to go anywhere else, standard size.
Thank you.
That's not correct. This is the entire entry's been reframed. That's not correct. That's not the door is an entire new framing system. So to say that that's made for that door, it's that building, that opening is incorrect. There's no way that door is custom fit for that opening. It's all been reframed. The entire entry's been reframed.
That opening was measured and...
Right, but you put a new frame for that custom door. It's not a custom, it's all been reframed. The entire thing has been reframed.
Okay.
You could put two...
Mr. Chair, have we opened testimony up to the contractor now?
That was a request made by...
Yeah, that was just a question I had for him. Yeah.
On the cost, talking about the hardship.
So then I've got a question. Sorry, but if you... Why did the installation proceed when there was no permit issued?
Anthony, if I may on that, honestly, when I was out there, I mean, it was pretty much ready to go in place. I mean, the entire unit is essentially... I allowed to finish it.
I'm saying, let's say that it's out. Why would we proceed without a building permit once it was established that a building permit was needed?
I think just to make the opening secure. We couldn't put the old one back in, so we had to do something to make the...
Board it up. Like they do the up and down grand actually, and the rise and the secure. Why would
I don't think that would have been secure enough to completely close off one of our openings and put something in there as secure as this door here.
She was living in the building. I mean, she was living there.
Okay, do we have any more questions from the board? I appreciate the board's desire to ask these questions. So we have a motion, and we've had 2 seconds to that motion, and so we're ready. The motion was to... the motion was to grant a hardship variance.
I'm sorry, I thought the motion was to allow the testimony.
Okay, to allow the
So I think that
testimony. So do we have
happened,
anything
correct?
else past that? Yes, sir.
I move that the Preservation Board uphold the Director's denial of all
Second. All right. Is there additional discussion?
Again, whether Bob's testimony is correct or whether the contractor's testimony is correct, I'm going to go with the owner and the contractor and say that the door wasn't in. And in fact, if it wasn't in and it was understood prior to it going in that it needed a building permit and it was still put in after that, the impetus is then on the contractor. I'm sorry, but having built several buildings, you board it up. You go through the back door. There are a number of ways to secure the building without continuing to do something that is incorrect.
Well, I agree with you completely, but you can't turn around and make him do that, so she's going to be stuck with the bill.
And then she should sue him, but that's because they did not secure a building permit as required. So that still puts that back on the contractor because they were supposed to do that.
Our legal counsel has...
I just wanted to interject that we're here to review the work pursuant to the standards and just to make the record that we're not in municipal court, so we're not looking at,
Sure.
someone being fined and what their circumstances might be. I just want to make sure that our review is pursuant to the standards of the enabling ordinance and also of the historic district ordinance, just to be clear for the recording.
All right, so we have a motion, second. Is there additional discussion with regard to that motion, which is to uphold the director's denial?
My original no vote was regarding the applicant's hardship.
Correct.
I also voted in favor of the motion to flesh that out. I do not find it flesh out. I voted close in my mind in the first place. I will vote for the motion.
Is there any way to revisit? No, once it's...
Revisit what, the
Well,
potential hardship issue?
Hardship, yeah, right.
You're in a position to vote on the motion that's been seconded. All right. Without any further discussion, so then the motion to uphold the director's denial, Commissioner Kell.
No.
Commissioner Barron.
Yes.
Commissioner Webb.
Yes.
Commissioner Tolman.
No?
Commissioner Bishop. Yes. That's 4 yes votes, no no. Additional matters to bring before the board tonight?
I would again like to thank Commissioner Schmidt for his service. And hope that we see him again. Commissioners, this is the end of your last meeting.
Okay, I'll have it in
Oh, thank you so much.
Any more of the forms, you want to look at them before, Mike got away, but if anybody else.
No, I got mine.
Okay.